Hey guys, welcome to the video for you guys. In today's video, we're going to talk about the iPhone 6s going into 2023 and if this phone is worth it, if you are using it, or if you're thinking about upgrading from it, all the things that you need to know about this phone. Let's get started. So as you can see here, the iPhone 6s here, a beautiful color phone I have is the rose gold one. Now, this does come in couple options. You got the silver, you got the black edition one, and of course, the color that we have here, the gold and the rose gold, which are slightly different color. But the iPhone 6s brought in a lot of changes for the iPhone in general when it was released, upgraded from the iPhone 6. It was released back in 2015 of September. Now, if you think about it, this phone is a little over 7 years now, and later this year, it's going to hit 8 years. So for this phone, almost an 8-year phone going into 2023. So not a lot you can expect from it, but there are some things that you can expect from it, which you're going to mention here. So as you can see here, the iPhone 6s here has a 4.7-inch display. Now, if you compare it to the new iPhone 14 lineup, which has starting with a 6.1-inch display, this display doesn't seem like it's big. And the iconic thing about the iPhone 6s is that Touch ID was introduced on the iPhone, which was a big thing for it. You still had that home, as you can see here, that headphone jack, which was removed starting with the iPhone 7 lineup, and a lot of people actually still like the headphone jack for some reason, but that is a feature of it. You'll see here, if we turn around the back here, you got that single 12 megapixel camera. You got that nice iPhone 6s label on it, which you don't see much of, and that aluminum body with this physical SIM card, which it's kind of important distinguishing, comparing that the iPhone 14 lineup no longer in the US model has a physical SIM card, which for some people it matters, because if you're a person that likes to take the phone out of the country or travel, or just like to take your SIM card out and replace it on an unlocked phone, it's going to be a big deal because you don't have to activate and remove your eSIM card every time and contact your carrier. So important thing about the iPhone 6s is that physical SIM card for some people. And if we talk about the hardware that's equipped with this phone, you notice here the iPhone 6s here equipped with Apple's A9 chip, which get with the 2 gigs of RAM. Now, if you compare to the iPhone 14 lineup, which again, if you go into Pro models, you see about almost 6 gigs of RAM, almost 3 times the amount of RAM. Of course, there's going to be difference in terms of performance. Now, the next thing we want to talk about, the battery life on this phone. As you see here, the battery life here, it's kind of limited. It's a smaller phone, so it has a 1715 mAh battery, which gives about 11 hours of video playback. Now, if you really do a comparison to the iPhone 14 phone, the base model, which gives you about 20 hours of video playback, this phone does seem like it's limited in terms of battery, and that's if you have a battery that's at 100%. This one, as you can see here, the battery has degraded over time, and you're not gonna get that 11 hours like you would on a new iPhone 6s if you had one. Now, moving on to the next thing about the camera, we mentioned briefly that it does have a single 12 megapixel camera on the back, which allows it to take some really good photos, and in the front here is only 5 megapixel compared to the new phone, which have around 12 megapixel cameras on the front here. You're able to take some good HDR photos. You got these things like square and pano, and even when it comes to video recording, as you see here, interesting enough, it can record in 4K, and that it allows the phone to really take some good video on it as well. But other features that you see on a newer phone that it is lacking, things like cinematic mode, action mode, night mode, macro mode, micro mode, all of those feature upgrades that happen over time. Since this is a over 7-year-old phone, you're just not going to have it. But for a regular user or a user that's not too concerned about the camera, who's looking to take decent photos, the iPhone 6s still will get you by with it. Now, moving on to the next topic, which is the software update of it. As you can see here, I opened up this Tips app, but you see here iOS 16 is saying that there's a preview for it, but the iPhone 6s doesn't get iOS 16. What's interesting about the iPhone 6s, which kind of surprised everyone, was that when it was supported on iOS 15, which we didn't expect Apple to do, but for some reason this phone was making one of the longest run when it came to software update, and we were able to take advantage of a lot of iOS 15 update on it. And we still see security updates being happening on the iPhone 6s here. If we go to general and software update, you'll see here right now we're able to update to iOS 15.7.3, which is the latest version. We'll see more security updates on it also. Although you don't get the iOS 16 update, Apple's still going to continue to support those minor bug fixes and major software issues that kind of happens to affect their phone, which Apple is known to do, which makes these phones pretty good when it comes to the Apple ecosystem. And moving on to the next aspect is apps that we have installed. As you can see here, most of your popular apps here we have installed here pretty much launch. Give it a few moments. Sometimes it takes up to 5-10 seconds because it is an older phone, doesn't have the beefy hardware that you see on the new phone. But for the most part, a good thing about the iPhone 6s is most of your apps will run. There are certain apps that you may not get the latest updated version of the app, but the app still will be able to run based using an older version of that app itself, which kind of sometimes is limited, but again will get you by for your basic needs here. So as you can see here, over time there is updated apps and you'll have to update as they come, but that won't be a big issue yet going this year, probably not till next year where we see the issue. Even when it comes to things like video streaming apps, as you can see here, when I open it up, like YouTube for example here, it opens up, no doubt. Once you open it up, you can still start streaming and doing much more of that. Now, talking into the next thing around gaming. So the phone is good for probably 2D gaming that are really simple, not too heavy on the graphic. If you're looking at heavy graphic gaming, probably not the iPhone 6s to do that. Those are games that are meant to be played in console. It just doesn't have that power. The phone here heats up and doesn't really do much good for you, and the lag you see on it, again, is terrible. That's something to mention. So bringing it back, is the iPhone 6s worth it going into 2023? Well, a couple things to kind of mention. It's going to be one of those, kind of depends on your scenario. But for one thing for sure is that if you're looking for those upgraded features on the camera, bigger battery life, all of that aren't going to be available for the iPhone 6s. But what is going to be available for the iPhone 6s is that if you're looking for a really simple phone, if you're currently using it or looking to buy a phone that's around $50-$60, which you can get the iPhone from eBay or on Amazon if you look around, which will leave some link in the description section. This phone, you can skirt around that, but it will get you by doing your basic stuff like calling, texting, and even light browsing. You won't have any issues with that. You do have to be a little bit patient when it comes to even browsing. You'll notice here when you try to open up apps, it takes a moment or so because it is an older phone, but once you get it loaded, it'll start running for you. So budget friendly phone. It's one of those phones that probably shouldn't upgrade to, but if you're upgrading from it, yeah, consider maybe a budget friendly phone like the iPhone SE second generation, which again is a cost friendly phone here, or even iPhone 8, which will get you by further. You might have spent like $50-$60 more, but the iPhone 6s going into 2023, our kind of verdict is that it's a phone at end of life, still will be supported, but not getting those major update. Is a phone probably you shouldn't buy, but upgrade to a newer phone. But again, if you still have it and you're using it and you don't have any issues with it, you can pretty much go buy with this phone. So we want to hear from you guys. What's your thought on the iPhone 6s going into 2023? Is it worth it? Are you using it? If you upgraded from it, leave a comment in the comment section. While you're at it, make sure that like and subscribe button. Thanks for watching, guys. See you guys next time.